Welcome to Bushwalking New South Wales annual general meeting.
I've got to mute this.
I'd also like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we're having our meeting, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and Bushwalking New South Wales pays its respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And also, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the land upon which we do our activities and all our club work. It's a great pleasure to welcome Les Higgins tonight. Just jumped ahead. First of all, any apologies? No? No? Yep, no, about to get that. So I'd like to welcome people not only in this room, but people also attending online. And the next item is to acceptance of minutes of the meeting AGM held on the 16th of August 2022. Now, they were circulated first and last. They have been circulated to all relevant parties. So can I move that the minutes be accepted? Peter, and seconded? John? I put that to the meeting. All those in favour? Aye. Objections? No. Okay, declare that carried. Thank you. So I'd like to welcome our keynote speaker tonight, Les Higgins. Les is an author, bushwalker, and health scientist psychologist. I'd also want to add that Les is currently working with us on a project really about leadership, but also about leading nature-based activities and developing better mental well-being, both for the leaders doing those activities, but also for people who participate in those activities. And we have to acknowledge that we have received a grant out of the Community Development Fund from the New South Wales government. And so acknowledge that thank you to the department for that money. This project will roll out during the rest of the year, and we'll start to see some results emerging towards the end of the year and early next year, and be rolling that out to all our affiliated clubs. But also like to acknowledge the other parties of this project. So as well as particularly Kirsten has been heavily involved in it, but also Michelle Mantignoni and Cara Ryan are the other two team members, as well as Les. So Les is part of that, very important part of it. There are other people involved. I don't know I have to say anything more at this stage, so I might just hand over to you, Les. Welcome.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you, folks, for welcoming me. I appreciate that. I'm very happy to be here tonight to introduce. Is there a problem?
It's a problem. Sorry. I want to share screen. Sorry, everybody. I have never done this before, and I didn't get a chance to play desktop share.
Thank you. Well, I'm still happy to be here tonight, introducing tonight's forum. I want to emphasise that this is not going to be a one-way street, far from it. It's going to be set the scene for what I hope will be a discussion that will help the project team. So, though it may have, understandably, a question and answer component, we're here to hear from you as much as we're here to share with you. Now, I'm also happy to be able to say that I'll be sharing the presentation part of tonight with Michelle. So I'm not running it solo. She's I have to say, a most informed and sympathetic and forthright voice for New South Wales Bushwalking Club leaders. It's great to be working with her and indeed with the others. Now, I'm going to start off tonight first by paying tribute to leaders, and in so doing, to invite them to tell, or to urge them to feel very good about what they do. And then Michelle will come on board to report what she's discovered about and what leaders have said to her about their role the pluses and the minuses, because I want to stress that this course is attempting to serve a number of issues, a number of concerns and priorities. More of that later. And then we'll give you a preview of what we at the moment see the course involving and how it would look and what we hope it will achieve. So let's get on with it. Now, why leaders should feel good about themselves? Well, and here's my first technical challenge. No, I'll hold it for a minute. Getting to nature is good for us. No one will dispute that, all right? And we know it's good on a number of fronts. We know, of course, of its physical benefits, but we also have to acknowledge that it is extraordinarily valuable in terms of its psychological and social benefits. According to one of the gurus in the field, Timothy Beatley, who's been investigating the impact of nature on the human brain, on human well-being, this is what he feels about nature and its potential for human well-being. He says, few elixirs have the power and punch to heal, restore, and rejuvenate in the way that nature can. Now, 40 years ago, a statement like that would have been dismissed as fanciful, but not today. It now has the wholehearted backing of science. People who have nature in their lives are happier, healthier, and are likely to live longer. Now, here's a snapshot of the good things that nature has in store for those of us who seek it out. Pause. Did I put the right button here?
Maybe another one.
Can you just press that one?
Yeah, that is.
Just forgive us a moment. We'll get this working.
Can you press it again? There you go.
No, I'll take it
Too
back.
far.
There we are.
Right.
Okay. I'll leave you just to take that in for a moment. Okay. Well, let me just make an initial comment or two about the first two items. Positive emotions. For most of the 20th century, psychologists believed that the positive emotions, including happiness, serve no purpose beyond perhaps undoing the impact and the consequences of sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. Of course, these emotions have obvious survival value. They serve to protect us from threats, from harm, and to motivate us to take appropriate evasive action. That has changed very dramatically, due largely to the work of a Professor Barbara Fredrickson, who, despite opposition when she was a young researcher, had the courage and tenacity and persistence to pursue her belief that positive emotions have very important functions. Her work has now brought home to us that they do indeed strengthen our ability to survive and to strive in two important ways. First, they broaden us, our minds, our emotional range, etc., and they help us to build competencies. Take the positive emotion that we bushwalkers know well, the beauty buzz, the joy of aesthetic pleasure. Now, this is much more than a mere feel-good emotion that ranges from gentle delight to euphoria. What happens when our brain, when we are experiencing aesthetic pleasure, is that our brains are activating the reward hormone, dopamine, which makes us feel very good and gets us activated to do things. It sparks curiosity and stimulates inquiry. It inspires creativity, and indeed it fosters friendliness and kindness. This is just the experience of aesthetic pleasure. In short, it makes us happier, smarter, and nicer to get on with. Do you not agree that when you've had a very warm, positive experience of nature's beauty and indeed of nature's awe as well, that you just feel that little bit more generous and warm-hearted? Well, that is a real experience, and it's a one that is contributing to a picture of human well-being and to the maintenance or the achievement thereof and the maintenance of it. I want to talk now just a moment or two about stress. Short-term or acute stress is good for us. It's what indeed helps us to deal with some of the legitimate and real threats that we might be facing. There's such a thing as good stress. But indeed, thank you. That's right, Peter. But chronic stress is a killer. It plays a role in a host of physical and mental illnesses. Now, the prime mover of the stress/anxiety response in our brains is a structure called the amygdala. You may have heard of it. And this is especially good to reacting to threats and to nasty experiences. A chronically active amygdala, sustained stress, anxiety disorders, excessive anger, impulsivity. This structure interfaces with almost all other parts of the brain. It is a very powerful agent, and it has a rather nasty disposition. In terms of bad things that happen to us, it acts like Velcro. It hangs on to them. In terms of the good things, it slides them away. Now, one of the messages we're getting from this study and this work is to realise the importance of accentuating, of taking full advantage of positive experiences. Now, of course, it tells us we ought to be seeking them out. And that indeed is what's happening in bushwalking. We're seeking out these positive emotions along with other things. Now, I'll share with you just a little piece of research that illustrates the point that I want you to take away, that this field that we're talking about, the relationship between nature and human well-being, is now the focus of very robust and strong science. So let me just share this briefly with you. This was a study that was done at the very prestigious Max Planck Institute. And how it went was simply this. While the subjects were in a brain scanner, they were subjected to stress, anxiety-inducing tasks, mental arithmetic tasks, and some fearsome faces were presented. Then they were randomly assigned to two conditions: a walk in urban conditions, houses, streets, and so on, and a walk of the same duration under the same weather conditions in an urban forest. Then they returned to the scanners. And what was found? Well, you can guess. The amygdala, which was highly activated, understandably, in the initiating conditions, was greatly subdued, much more subdued after the exposure to the natural environment. Now, it's this kind of experimental work that is giving us more and more confidence that we're really onto something very important as we invite people to take advantage of exposure to nature. But now I just need to add a little rider to this. Kirsten, it's not moving for us. Not moving forward. Sorry, folks. No, it's just there. Just why do you think it's not going onto here? Maybe it needs your touch. Let's perhaps not linger too long. It'd be a shame if we can't, because it has a point I really do want to make.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So use your finger and push down when you.
Sorry, what did you do?
You use your finger, see to move the mouse, and then push down.
Ah, now we've got it. There we go back. Now, there you are. Now, we can add to the scientific picture that work is now really getting on to examining walking, hiking. But in our lingo here in Australia, of course, it's bushwalking. And it's emerging as an ideal way of milking nature of its benefits. But it depends on, and this is worth emphasising, the type and quality of the bushland. We understand that, and you won't be surprised by this, that the more aesthetically appealing bushland is, the more devoid of intrusive sound and cultural features, the more likely it is to deliver benefits to us. It depends on personal factors, gender, age, and especially how committed and closely connected people are with nature, their nature connectedness. It also depends on the kind of activity. An activity, a bushwalk, for example, that is one in which we're aiming to get somewhere will not have quite the same impact, perhaps, as one where we just want to be somewhere, namely in the environment. So it's important, therefore, to bear in mind that there are all sorts of factors, notably the ones I've mentioned, that will affect the power of nature to do good for us. Now, there's no better way to bushwalk than with a club. And who makes club bushwalks happen? Well, they're the leaders. By leading activities, leaders are contributing to people's happiness, health, and well-being, including their own. So go on, leaders, feel good about what you're doing, and please keep doing it. Now, I want to just make this point that bushwalking leaders are doing more than just not just perhaps, but more than enhancing people's well-being. They may well be changing people's lives in a way that they'll never come to appreciate. And I want to illustrate that very, very quickly here now. I move it along and touch. Meet a family, starting with yours truly, semi-retired bushwalker, author, treasurer of Salmonat. These are pieces of information that will become relevant as they go forward, why they've included them. There's Wendy, daughter, artist, award-winning creative mentor of Nepalese polymer clay artists. Great-granddaughter. Wendy's husband, secretary of Salmonat. Margaret, my wife. Now, I just introduced you to these people, a very ordinary family, but that family's life has been extraordinarily impacted by the initiative and the support of bushwalk leaders. It all began way back almost 40 years ago now, half a century nearly, when I joined the NPA and linked up with leaders from that organisation to stand out. Anne Hamilton and Brian Saunders. Anne led day walks for the NPA. And when my wife and I decided we had to do something as a family, we joined the NPA. Girls were just 10 and 12. And we often found ourselves, as you sometimes do when you walk with, follow similar walking offerings, we found ourselves walking with Anne. And Anne was extremely successful in including the girls. The groups that she led seemed to make them feel part of the group. And she provided something of a model for the girls and sowed the seeds of what became a great love and commitment to bushwalking. And that led to other things that I'll sketch very quickly. For my part, I joined with Anne, but then I also had the great delight of meeting Brian Saunders, who introduced me to overnight camping. And in this way, I became very much more immersed in nature. And I discovered the emotional highs that come when you encounter nature's beauty and vastness and wonder. And you probably all know that state of, joy and contentment, that bonhomie that we get. I call it the bushwalker's glow. It can last for hours and even days. That's at least in my experiences. Now, what went on, where we stepped to from there, I'm going to just illustrate this way so we can move it along quickly. There you said we migrated under Anne's guidance into day walking, as I was suggesting. I embraced backpacking when I contacted Brian Saunders. I put his photo up there. Some people may remember Brian. He was something of a legend. We came then after several years with backgrounds as shown by the third column. And that trek to Nepal was an extraordinary life-changing experience for us. It led then to not only a profound love of the country, but it saw eventually the family returning to it and becoming involved in part of the life of that country. For my part, I found myself caught up in providing a bushwalking course that went on for 25 years, involved 500 or 600 people overall. Along with that, the trekking company that had looked after us initially took me on board as an honorary leader. So I had the great privilege of leading treks in Nepal. Where's that all brought us after these 40 years? Well, there's a little sketch. We've got a family that is united around nature activities, and we're bonded by those experiences. We found ourselves able to take on holiday options that we wouldn't otherwise have managed, particularly those involving activities in nature. I think it's contributed enormously to our health. Two in the photo earlier on are octogenarians, well past 70 years and 10. And we had the delight of walking with a great-granddaughter. She was a great assistant. She was at the top of the climb there. It was in Lord Howe Island, that picture. After a climb, she would turn to us, and I remember saying, "You're doing well, Grandpa and Grandma." There you are. So, but it was a lovely experience. The reference to Samanat is to just illustrate the point that our elder daughter, Wendy, by having eventually going to live in Nepal with her husband, linked up with an NGO there, and as a result of her creative work, has actually put that charity on a very, very firm footing financially, because the women she trained, Wendy being an artist, a polymer clay artist, trained the women, gave them skills, which have now made a number of them polymer clay artists in their own right, and the production of this work, or products of this work, are actually funding the enterprise, which is now impacting, or has been impacting, the lives of women who have been trafficked, domestically abused, otherwise rendered into states of great vulnerability. The bushwalking course spawned Yarrawood Bushwalking Club, which in turn spawned the former president of this organisation. So it goes on. Why do I highlight this or bring this to your attention? Simply to make the point that Brian and Anne would have had no knowledge, no concept of how, by providing a context in which people could engage with nature, come to love it, and to move on in their capabilities and their enthusiasms, to do all sorts of other unexpected things. Right. I think at this point, we might see it's time to invite Michelle on board, who's going to pick up the second of those topics, what bushwalking leaders have told her about their experiences.
Thanks, Les. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think that this report was done maybe about a year and a half ago. So a year and a half ago, Kirsten asked me to do some sort of investigating around the leadership issues. So I think that we identified that clubs are thriving in many respects. You know, bushwalking clubs certainly have a lot of people who want to go on walks, but many bushwalking clubs, unfortunately, don't have enough leaders to lead walks. So the real question that we wanted to try and answer with this research is, what is, you know, the leadership conundrum? Why is it that a lot of bushwalking clubs struggle to find leaders to do walks? So we went out there and we asked that question, and I guess in going, you might think that the struggle is really around logistical or technical barriers, things like people don't know how to do navigation, or people don't have enough knowledge of the area where they want to take people bushwalking, or people, you know, don't have enough technical know-how in terms of what to bring on a walk and all of that sort of stuff. You know, that they're the barriers that may be why people aren't confident enough to lead bushwalks. And that certainly was the case to some extent. But what became quite clear from the research is actually there was kind of like another level of barriers, which I would call them emotional barriers, that were really contributing to people's sort of reticence to lead walks. And the emotional barriers were things like, essentially, they boil down to just two things. That is, lack of confidence in handling tricky situations. So, for example, if something unexpected happens on a bushwalk, and the leader feels that they've got to make a very difficult decision in stressful circumstances, like somebody's pack is too heavy, you're 2 hours into a bushwalk, a pack walk, their pack is too heavy, they can't handle, you know, the load that they've taken. What do? You're the leader, you know, what decision do you make? Do you dispatch them back to the cars, or do you carry their gear, or just difficult situations like that? So that was kind of like one class of, you know, the barriers, difficult decisions. And another one was difficult people management. So I think that we may all have had experiences of being out on walks, and there are people who may like to dominate, or people who express their opinion very strongly. And, you know, how does a leader, you know, especially a new leader who hasn't been leading for very long, how do they handle that situation? So I guess what we found is that while technical and logistical issues certainly do comprise some of the barriers to preventing people from leading walks, the emotional issues also comprised a lot of the barriers. And the emotional issues were kind of like a big sort of grey sort of blur. You know, they were very difficult for people to define. They were difficult for people to even understand. You know, I think that when I spoke to inexperienced leaders, or less experienced leaders, I should say, they would sort of talk about the fact that, you know, maybe I'm just not really that type of person who can lead walks, or, you know, maybe some people are just more naturally good at this. You know, some people seem to be able to do it naturally. But really, when you actually broke it down, it was kind of like, well, I can understand why you would find that particular situation difficult. So I guess the reason why I referred to it as a bit of a grey blurb is that from the club's point of view, I don't think that anybody had defined in detail exactly what those issues are, and then maybe trained less experienced leaders in how to deal with them. So while clubs are very clear on logistical and technical training, we need to train you in navigation, not so clear perhaps in dealing with the people issues, or how do you respond if you've got to deal with a very tricky situation, stuff like that. So that's kind of why I refer to it as a bit of a grey blur, because it was just a bit of a sort of all mixed in together, not clearly defined, you know, whose role is it to help people through these issues and to teach them, and what exactly needs to be taught. So we've kind of subsequently gone through a process of unpacking all of that stuff in detail and putting it into a leadership training course, which I think we're here to tell you a little bit about tonight, and to give you a little taster of tonight, so that we can really tell people up front. So tell both, let's say, less experienced leaders, but also even experienced leaders could benefit from this course. Tell people up front, these are the kinds of situations you're going to have to deal with. And we can help you actually find solutions and find resources to be able to confidently deal with them. And in so doing, you know, another very significant component of this course is that in so doing, you will actually be contributing to your community as a bushwalking leader in all of the ways that Les has described. So I guess, you know, we've kind of decided to bring, hear me, but we've decided to bring that aspect of it. So dealing with, along with actually when you become a bushwalking leader, you're giving your community a lot of benefits, physical benefits and mental health benefits, because they actually really beautifully merge in together in that if a leader is able to exercise their inner strength and resilience in order to be able to overcome these stresses and create a container for both themselves and for others to be able to receive those benefits from nature that Les was referring to earlier, then in that way, collectively, we're doing something really, really, really beneficial for the community, and that it spreads out in all of the ways that Les was just describing. So I think that that's kind of really what I had to say. Les?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michelle. That was admirable. Thank you.
Oh, I'll go back to, yeah, I've got to do that.
Well done. Now let's go to the next one. Righty-ho. So time to move now to the end.
Done that again.
It's done. No. We'll hang in there. We'll get it right there. We wanted to go to that one.
I'll just
Okay.
do one thing.
Yep.
While I'm there.
Imagine there's a commercial, would you? Okay. Sports bet is coming up.
It's so weird.
And
Right. Okay. So which one are you up to?
keep going. I'll tell you. I think it might be there. Go back to this
I want to be on that one. Okay. I don't know. Magic touch.
one. What's this? I'll just check that. Is that number 6? Yeah, I did indeed. We go back to number 6. If we may, you just hold it and drop back. No, and then we go this one.
There is.
That's 6. Right. Now we give Michelle has set the scene. This is what we were contemplating as we set to design this course. The reasons why, or some of the reasons why, we're finding that particularly the interpersonal and social issues are surfacing can be traced back to as one of the several of the leaders, I think, as I recall, told us in their various ways that the culture of bushwalking has changed, and indeed is going to continue to change. They mentioned greater expectations that on club leaders from members, with not the reciprocal giving back necessarily. I was interested to hear that clubs are often seen as being like tour operators. And we have another phenomenon that's patently obvious. Clubs are now competing for members against less structured, mainly social media-based ways of participating in group bushwalking. And as a result, it's becoming more casual, more standardized, commodified. But people are looking for a product that they can link into with minimum forward planning, almost impulsively, just to go off and have a bit of a day or half a day walking with someone. Volunteering is declining. This is part of a wider phenomenon but it's certainly impacting on the culture of bushwalking. It's making some people very resentful of the fact that I've been working for bloody 20 years and nobody else wants to come forward. Now, all of this is clearly impacting on what we call the culture, the way of life of clubs. And let's not forget, there's a global movement been identified from collectivism to individualism. Fancy words that simply mean my generation thrived in groups. We depended on groups. We met our wives in groups. We had our entertainment in groups. But what happens now? It's individualized. And that creates values. People value individualism. They value being able to have it their way. Do you agree? Do you think this is what's spilling over? So we're working against a tide. And hence, I think it's very timely that we, and I do commend, I meant to do this earlier, Kirsten, for her vision in seeking this grant and indeed securing it, because it is quite a visionary move. Right. The second thing is that what we might see as a rather more positive tide. There is a growing community awareness, and this is a result of people finally discovering what science is saying about the value of nature for human well-being, and indeed for problems of well-being related to mental illness and even physical disease, and physical diseases. And as community wakes up, so too does the mental health community. They're beginning to see the potential for bushwalking clubs to help prevent, to access the benefits, the well-being, the health benefits of nature. Now, you may be interested to know that this interest is manifesting in very, very interesting ways. There are over 100 centres in the United States and some others in the UK where doctors are literally writing prescriptions to go and get into nature. They are prescribing nature. Often it's for the lifestyle illnesses that are known to us, diabetes, overweight, and so on. But people are paying attention now to the possibility of nature helping with this rampant mental health problem. You're aware of the Australian statistics, aren't you? 1 in 5 Australians is going to have a mental health problem this year. 6 people today committed suicide in Australia. Probably was near 8. 44% Australians will have mental health disorder or disease in their lifetime. It is a massive problem. And here we are, we've got the resources of nature on hand, and here you are already tapping into them. And all our course is going to suggest is that by a little bit of tweaking, just a few simple practices, and oh, they are simple, we can enhance the impact of nature on our members and on our leaders. Okay? Interestingly, some places are actually forming partnerships between the mental health community and bushwalking groups. Look, I'll read you what's happening in Ontario. They've got a program called Mood Walks, where the mental health people are working with bushwalking organisations to run walks. And here's what they call them, mood walks, and this is how they describe them. These walks are designed to encourage and support the mental and physical health of participants through exposure to, get this, the healing effects of nature, participation in physical activity and engagement with the community. Participants such as those at risk of or experiencing mental health difficulties and social isolation can benefit from participating in mood walks. How about that? How about that? And in a sense, what is happening here with us? The government has given us money to see what we can do to just enhance the impact of our nature experience on our members and our prospective members, to maximise, to optimise the impact that the well-established healing and well-being benefits of nature. You've heard of forest bathing. This is one other area that's really, that is a kind of bushwalking, but please don't be deceived. People will put up shingles and saying, I'm a Shinrin-yoku therapist or something. Take care. It has a very special meaning. It's evolved and is developed in Japan, and it's not exactly bushwalking, although we can borrow 1 or 2 of their tricks. And that's what we're going to do in the course. Right. Nearly there. Why is this happening?
It's never done this before.
That's all right. Now, here's an outline of the course. Modules. Yep. It begins, by the way, that's obscure. Why you should do the course. As adults, you've got to convince adults they need to go to a course, otherwise they won't do it. It's a fundamental principle of adult education. We, as Michelle so ably explained, we acknowledge that there are important technical and logistical skills that ought to be in place. There are a few problems with those, but over the years, clubs have been addressing them in one way or another. Maybe we just need to revisit some of the guidelines that we are issuing for our leaders, maybe look to having some refresher courses on navigation, whatever. That wasn't really territory that we could cover, too vast. So we've shaped it into the areas that are now unfolding on the screen, addressing the potential stresses of activity leadership, right? Some of them there. The fact that it's a very responsible business. You've got lots of different things. We leaders, I can say that, I'm still leading from a sense. We see that team spirit is breaking down a little bit. And we need to address the rebuilding of team spirit. Gee, I was interested last night in a comment on the Matildas. The fact that they are a collective, that they are really work to get together with one another to have unified strength. Okay. Then we would need to look at those skills and competencies that are so important in a range of situations in life, but certainly in bushwalking settings, people skills, communication, and on the basis of that, fortifying our leaders with just a few little basic items of know-how to deal with the inevitable interpersonal tensions and stresses that come when people come together. Then there are 3 other modules. One introduces to some very simple practice for increasing people's contact with nature. What's the best way of contacting nature? Just by the way, I'm sorry, no, reframe that. You're on a bushwalk. What's a good thing to do occasionally in order to let people take it in, to soak it up? Thank you. Stop and smell the roses. Stop or walk slowly. Isn't that simple? But that we know. I'm not here making this up. We've got the evidence to show that a simple practice like that makes a difference, and it also enhances the dynamics within the group. As people have good feelings, they become a little bit nicer, right? And this, Michelle flagged this. She said what we're doing overlaps beautifully. Strengthening resilience in nature. Resilience, you know, the ability to bounce back, to deal with stresses and strains. We've got a massive problem with our younger generation, as you're probably aware. We've got an epidemic of anxiety and depression. And many are tracing it back to the fact that they are losing the opportunities to push the envelope a bit, to be little heroes to themselves and discover, gee, I was a bit scared, but I got up that tree and I got back down again. I can do things. Now, obviously, I'm oversimplifying, aren't I? But you're getting the drift. Resilience. Do you agree bushwalking provides marvellous opportunities for people to be little heroes to themselves? Well, let's make the most of those. And it's so simple. And finally, social relationships. Now, Michelle, the earlier modules are addressing this, so we're really majoring on getting our teams together and working together. Okay, here we go again. See how we go. You ready for it, Michelle? I think we're nearly there now, and we can. Oh yes, I'm finished. Now the forum's begun. I've been looking forward. Unless you'd like to just do this. We're not just going to talk at people in our program. I skimmed over how it's going to look. It's going to be about 3 hours. I saw that the slide didn't come through, but it'll be online. It will involve videos. It'll have references to other resources. It will engage people in exercises. It will pose scenarios. But we're still working it up, and we're still looking for guidance and input from people like you. So tonight's forum is an exchange. And if I shut up, we'll get on with it. But here's just a sample of some of the kind of scenarios that we put to people to think about. Take number 2 since, take number 2. There's a walk leader. A walk, somebody's being loud and boisterous. You know, one of those lovely extroverted people that everybody's happy about. Okay, they don't seem to realise that others want to hear the sound and so on. Now, they're not doing anything wrong, but at the same time, they're starting to irritate some people. Now, what option will you have to manage those? And that's the sort of thing exercises we use. Okay. Now, time to go to you. Yep, I mean, I know. Well, do you want to ask some questions? That's a good start. And of course, we're all a bit tentative if we're in a group situation, but let's and people online, we're going to relay your questions by way
So
of.
the way this is going to work is I think we'll start first, and you want to manage the chat
Yes.
questions, and we're going to try and give both audiences an equal opportunity. Because of the sound system here, when you ask a question, I'm going to repeat it because I'm closer to the laptop, and it'll be better heard by people attending online. So for those online, if you want to post questions in the chat function, please do so. Well, while that's going on, we might take one from this room. But yeah, what was the question?
Some research asking about leadership. Does your research also cover the club culture? In other words, how effectively do clubs fulfill on, some of the suggestions you made currently?
Yep. So the question for those attending online was, what's the importance of existing or potential club culture in fostering better leadership in bushwalking?
No,
Is that-
not really the importance, because we accept that it's important.
Yep.
I just wondered to what degree clubs currently reflect, those kind
Oh,
of
okay.
things.
So the question was, to what extent do clubs currently reflect some of the issues that we've identified on the screen?
That could be from Michelle.
Sorry,
Michelle?
what issues specifically are you talking about?
Well, you spoke about, for example, stopping and slowing the races, slowing down and slowing the races. Do clubs do that currently? You spoke about inclusiveness within clubs. How inclusive are clubs at the moment? How do they greet new members? How do they involve new members? How do they engage with them generally? So I understand all these things are important, but I just wonder how effective clubs are in doing simple things like that.
Michelle, did you pick that up?
I couldn't really hear it all, no.
Michelle,
Yeah.
essentially, how clubs fostering teamwork, for example? What were some of the other areas you mentioned?
Are they inclusive?
Yes, are they taking new members on board and getting them involved and included? From your discussions with leaders, what do you think? It won't be, there's no overall picture, I suppose. It will vary from club to club, but what are some observations you might make about those things, about how clubs are managing those important elements of culture?
Yeah, so I think that what I would say to that is clubs are really doing the best that they can. But I think that it's still fair to say that some cultural issues are there, often because I guess there may be a lack of kind of know-how or tools in how to better manage situations. So I think that clubs probably do a pretty good job of taking new members on and welcoming them. I think that they're, if you like, not such difficult things to do. So I think that clubs are doing that, generally speaking, quite well. That's what I would say, without really being able to answer that question in a detailed way across all clubs. I only spoke to 20 people from about 10 clubs. So, the sample is not huge. So I think doing things like that is quite well. I think when it comes to difficulties, that's when things can become unstuck. And I think that, looking at the issue of club culture really needs to be about how do we manage those difficulties properly. And managing them properly is very simply about managing them in a really fair way and a timely way, so that if any sort of interpersonal issues arrived, they don't sort of get a chance to fester and become bigger than they need to be. They're dealt with quickly and fairly and truthfully. And hopefully we're really hoping that the course gives people the tools to do that, or to at least start doing that. So, for example, in the course, we've written a whole piece about, you know, what exactly is team spirit? You know, if you break it down into detail, what is it from the point of view of your club? Then what is it from the point of view of each individual person in your club? What behaviors do they need to emanate in order to embody and reflect team spirit? And that's something that people can come back on. You know, if there is an interpersonal issue, it's kind of like, well, have we actually been behaving, or are we aligned to the common values of the club? So I think that yes, clubs are doing culture as best they can, but we're hoping to give clubs tools to be able to do it better. Does that answer the question?
Does that help answer the question?
Yeah.
May I just add the point that it's my conviction, I think it's shared by the team, that this program can't be presented without backing of clubs. And for example, we would rather like to think that clubs, in knowing that we are trying to make advances in the areas that Michelle is highlighting, we would, you know, be interested to get clubs to tell us, have they communicated clear guidelines relating to leadership? Probably yes, but what about followership? Are people coming into clubs and being educated, as it were, as to expectations that are reasonable for their conduct, relating to their conduct in a bushwalk? Is that an area that needs to be addressed? What about, given that our leaders are often quite getting upset and distressed, what kind of support are we giving the leaders? Are we giving them a chance to unburden to one another, for example? I mean, I'm just pulling things off the top of my head a little bit here, but it does seem, at least to me, that there's got to be a complementary, I won't say a review, that's very technical, but just a little bit of housekeeping done in relationship to just, are we taking as much care of the leaders as we can? That would be an added thought I'd have to your question.
I think the part of the, I don't think it's just a club, it's a culture per se. I think it's very much rests with leaders and the description of walks that are given. A lot of the problems, I think, are overcome if there's an adequate description of a walk, and if there's some sort of control over that. If you've got somebody brand new coming on a particular walk, that you know a little bit about them to see that they can do the walk. It's not so much a problem on day walk as much as it would be on a camp. But a lot of the things that give it away is if you go on a camp trip and you find that people haven't got the equipment and they didn't come to ask about it, well, you know, you've got a problem. But the matter of at the individual club level, or at least my experience is that individual leaders tend to develop reputations, good or ill, as far as how hard the walks are. But generally, they try to describe the walk enough to be able to say to somebody, or if they know the individual, say, look, this is going to be hard, and you can manage. The leader might say that their expectations are unrealistic. That's why it's important in the planning that you have some reasonably accurate description about distance, terrain, and so forth, so that people can have some idea of what to expect.
Thank you. You've summed up David, have the point. Did you want to relay it to our friends out in the field there?
Yes, that was a comment about walk descriptions, and that good walk descriptions can overcome some of the, I guess, issues around expectations or inability to complete the walk. Would that be correctly? Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. So it's about how the leader describes the activity proposed. Yeah, and provides enough information.
The part there is that to have some knowledge about the people that are going on the walk. So if you're a leader and you get half a dozen people there in a club situation, that's the benefit of walking in a club, that the chances are through the club prospective arrangements. So for example, in my club, we might require 3 or 4 walks to be done at a particular level. And from the walk reports, you can then, a leader, if he doesn't know that person, can go back to the membership secretary and try to find out, well, you know, how do they fare in the walk, or what walks have they done, and how have they fared? I mean, it's not often in an easy day walk, that's not much a problem. But it can be if you're going to take on a longer one, or start doing a weekend.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to share a quick chat? Can you hear me?
Come down here.
So, Michelle, you mentioned two things missing from club leadership training. Clubs do have leadership training, but 2 things missing: one, handling difficult situation and handling difficult people. Are you familiar with commercial walk training? Because I think this would be included in training for people leading commercial walks. Would that be right?
Yeah, probably. Look, the honest truth is I'm actually not familiar with that. So I can't really speak to that, but yeah. If we had access to that kind of material, that could be very useful. As yet, I don't know that we've got access to it, but it's certainly an interesting avenue.
Okay, we've got some questions online. Do you want to ask Anna's? Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, just read that.
Okay, so Anna I'm sorry, Anna. She says, from my experience, I found the club does not have a plan to develop or assist new walker leaders. The club does have rich resources for people to read, but nowadays face-to-face relationships to assist new leaders is probably more efficient, ? Not really a question, more of a statement.
Yes, yes, and it's a helpful comment. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah.
You'd like another one?
Yes, may this speak? Are we speaking about mentoring here? Do you think building up something? Maybe that's something we could. Maybe some clubs are doing it. It'd be nice to hear what they're doing. I must say, it'd be great.
And Yop Kim Sung has a couple of comments. Firstly, what does the club tell new members about bushwalking, e.g. appropriate footwear, requirements to have own first aid kit, etc.? Does the club operate a buddy system where an experienced leader can accompany a new leader on the first few walks they lead?
Again, they're good suggestions. Yes, they would have heard that. Yeah, they're good suggestions, aren't they? Really? Would you agree? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Yop.
We'll ask for this group now. Your turn.
Well, my club does have leader training walks. It's written on the walk program, this is leader training walk.
Observation was that some clubs have leader training walks, which is an interesting concept, from theory to practice. Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah.
So
it's a normal walk, but the leader is prepared to train somebody at the same time.
It's
be a leader.
Yeah, a normal walk where you're having a leader and somebody coming in and learning the ropes on the way.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe even called the co-leaders perhaps, or maybe not, but they're in, no, just coming in to watch and learn. Thank you.
if I may suggest, club that I've associated with some time ago, which is joined by Bnsw bushwalkers, probably 10 plus years ago, because of the shortage of leaders in their ropes expertise, which they are supreme at, developed a very good training program for emerging leaders. I was on it in a good way to that. It was excellent. It was very practical. It was 4 or 5 weeks of outdoor activities. It was homework. It was risk analysis. It was a bit of research. It may be worth reaching out to Bankstown and see if they've still got a few notes or some basics.
Yeah, there must be a lot of good stuff out in clubland. I would think people have done, I mean, my little club has done loads and loads of stuff in resourcing people. Maybe I don't know how it would be engineered from perhaps Bushwalking New South Wales, but there may be some way in which we can have a bit of collating of this. I'm sure there's a lot of wisdom out there that needs to be tapped. Yeah, thanks. That's Bankstown, a very fine club.
Question from the back. I might repeat this for the people online because you mightn't get through clearly, but
that's okay. Just for what Alan was saying, in the Bush Club, we have leader mentoring on our website. So when the new leader, they want to go on, look at the website, they can see a leader who's willing then in specific areas, so it narrows it down to them. And also then, if we have enough new leaders coming on board, we actually put on a leader training walk specifically for them. And where I have just new leaders with an experienced leader out in the bush, going through the walk and going through the protocols. Our job is getting people to put their hands up to go on the training.
thanks, Tom. That was
what we do. You know, it's like you're basically hitting your head off.
so the question. The comment was really a comment about the Bush Club and the examples there provided in terms of joint leader activities to help take people, new leaders on leadership walks, and also mentoring. And that, but also the problem you identified, Tom, was that getting people to put their hand up to actually do the training. So it's getting people to take that first step.
How are we going for time? I think we need
Start to wind up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. Well, folk, we're getting the wind
Got
up.
one more here.
Oh, sorry,
Sorry.
one more, and then we will get on to the. meetings.
So David Richards from online says, agreed, our club has started face-to-face Zoom sessions for new leaders and provide access to club online leaders resources at the end for further follow-up. We have considered providing buddy leaders, but have found there is not a one-size-fits-all for new leaders. Agree that a training course that explores the emotional barriers will be very beneficial. Yok also asks, how does one find out where the information day for new leaders? Is that, I wonder, Yok, are you asking, how does a club inform its members that there's going to be an information day? Anyway, let me know, Yok. Yes, she says, okay, I guessed it. We've also got a comment from Matt McClelland, who's from NPA of New South Wales. He said, Michelle was interested in commercial training that might cover some of these topics. There is a common unit used in many outdoor training packages, CXCAI006, that might be of interest. I will share that around. How can I share that with people here online? Okay, and then here are there are other related units that would be helpful. So he's offering, Matt also says he can send us NPA stuff if you want, just reach out. It's very generous. And then Linda Herford says, we put it into our walks program if we were going to have an information day. Okay, that's an answer to Yock's question about how does one find out when there's an information day for new leaders. So you just put it in your walks program. It's quite simple. Oh, that's so small.
There, yeah.
So this is the link that
Get your pens out. Thanks, Matt.
that Matt
Yeah.
sent.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Facilitate groups.
So we can get it down.
It's a brief description of it. So 6X.
I think
You can find
just that. I think that will
bring it up.
that'll bring it up.
Yeah, well, that, I think, folk, for my part, thank you for participating. It's been helpful to us, and I think ideas are burgeoning there about maybe a little bit more, if we can get something out of one another by sharing what one is doing, see what can do. That's been, I hope, fruitful. So thank you very much, and thank you, Michelle, and my long-suffering Kirsten, who's done the technical side so beautifully,
So
despite
I'd
all
like
that.
to sort of thank.
I'll get, I'm going to
Give me back
the
the-
slide.
That concludes the presentation. So now we're getting on to the really interesting bit, which is the business part of the meeting. That's why you all were here, weren't you? We do have to finish our AGM before we can leave. So we're just going to move on to that. But however, there was one more thing for Les.
Yeah, I want to put this into slide mode. And no idea why this is doing this.
Here we are, Les. That's what you're getting as a present.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, so we'll be sending that to you.
Oh,
It's flat. It's flat.
so it's a oh, wait a minute, we've got a sorry, I've got a share screen. Sorry.
Bye-bye. Thanks for coming.
Oh, really?
Yes. That's it.
Oh, thank you.
All good? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I said we're going to have an annual general meeting. The AG. We did circulate our 2023 annual report, which has three components. There was a report from Kirsten as executive officer. There was a report from me as president, and there's a financial report. And I'll just, before I hand over to Kirsten and Peter, our treasurer, the main thing I wanted to say is just to thank the outgoing committee, John Gray, Peter Jack, Trevor Caldwell, Margaret Covey, John Flint, and Paul McCann. I'd like to thank all of those people for their work on the committee this year. I'd also like to thank Kirsten Mayer as executive officer. I think she's done a fantastic job. And also I'd like to thank Justine Burke as our administration officer. She did a lot of good work, particularly on handling the annual returns from the clubs. So an onerous chore. I'd also like to thank all the other volunteers that Kirsten organises on around the operations of the club, such as a website. Leonie Bell, who else, Kirsten? No,
Sorry, going to,
other than Leonie, who else should I mention?
volunteers, yeah, well, Justine used to be a volunteer, now she's doing our admin work, and that's it.
Okay, and last but not least, I'd like to also mention Keith Maxwell, our honorary historian,
And
And-
also Christopher Birch.
and Christopher Birch. I call him the bushwalking barrister. He does a lot of pro bono work for us. And to give an example, he gave a lot of good advice on the Gardens of Stone issue and the proposed leases for commercial developments in the Gardens of Stone Stage 2 area, which is an ongoing issue. But anyway, we do value Chris's legal advice. Did you want to add anything?
I've got a little thank you spot that,
All right, I might move.
I
So,
will thank you. Yes, well, thanks to David, our president, who talks to me for an hour at least every week and is a great support and a visionary president who has come up with a lot of ideas for Bushwalking New South Wales. Thank you, David.
no, thank you, Kirsten.
David's work as a conservation officer as well.
Yes, in addition, David has been our conservation officer for years. He's also been our tracks and access officer, which has lately been taken over by John. He's connected us with Crown Lands, National Parks and Wildlife Service, and put us on the map with those organisations so that we're at the table discussing plans with them. He's also connected us to Destination North Coast, who or I think I might have, anyway, somehow we are now working with Destination North Coast to talk about a great North Coast walk from Newcastle to the border with Queensland. So since, David's been on board, the reach of the organisation has increased, the quality of our work has increased, and the influence that we have has increased. So all of the stuff that I needed more training in, David has helped us with. So I very much appreciate his leadership and support.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll get to the financial report in a minute, but I'm going to just request a motion adopting the annual report. So if someone could move that. Yep, Peter, thank you. Seconded. John, I put the motion to the meeting. All those in favour of adopting the 2023 annual report, all those in favour? Aye. Those against? Nil. Declare that carried. We'll now just move to the financial report, which was also circulated before the meeting. Peter, do you want to make any comments as our treasurer?
No.
Peter, you want to perhaps come around to here and take the chair?
There is an error in it, in the name of the Commonwealth grant, the government grant that we got is incorrect. It should be called what should it be called? The Community Development Fund, not Mental Health in Sport, which is what I've called it. And for those of you who are wondering about my peculiar accounting, we got a grant of $50,990, most of which is shown in the balance sheet, not as revenue, because it's not really our money. It's our money just to spend on that particular project. And if we don't spend it, we've got to give it back. So it's not income, and so it's not in the income statement. Other than that, we're in fairly good shape financially. And I hope it stays that way.
That grant, what is it actually called?
Sorry?
That grant, what is it called?
Community, oh, let's see.
Community-
What we're talking about.
Community Development Fund.
Yeah, that's what it's from, but for what purpose?
For the project that,
Or is it under community development?
no, it's the project, it's for the project that Les and Michelle presented on.
Oh, right.
That's what's paying for them. And Cara Ryan is a third person who will be involved a bit later in the project. So that's unrolling now. And we'll, yeah, and I think it's due to be completed in the end of this current year. There's a question at the back.
Yeah.
It's Tom.
Questions. Obviously the grants brought your plans over the threshold for GST. In other words, we are now our affiliation are now allowed to GST. Threshold. When the grants, when that fund starts to come down, threshold, if you come back onto the threshold, then the GST doesn't apply.
If we were confident that we would never again pass the threshold, we have to be very confident that one what is it, 150? 150 for around drive.
So the people online.
Sorry, the question was, we are now registered for GST. We have not passed that on. Well, we have discounted the affiliation fee for the bills that we're just paying this year, so that the GST only brings us back to what we paid last year. Next year it will be plus GST. The question was, if that grant is spent and not replaced, will that put us under the GST threshold and therefore not liable for it anymore? And my answer is, if we are confident that we will continue to remain under the threshold, we could deregister for the GST. But we would have to be very confident that was the case.
Question, if I may. I've not worked in that space, but I'm an ex-ATO auditor.
Oh.
I would actually question whether the grant is deemed to be part of it. I think that would be very worthwhile because of the GST threshold.
Could well be worthwhile, yes.
And save a lot of money.
My understanding was that they insisted,
It's worth the question.
didn't they?
Sorry, what was that?
Didn't the government insist that we be registered, or that there was something about we had to be in the GST system for them?
It's, yeah, I'm not trained in accounting, so I've just read the ATO pages and the threshold for, so.
Well, I'll quote you as
Sounds like
ATO
it's
auditor when we do that.
It's not, that's not, I was in the 100 to 250 mil market, not GST. But reading the threshold doesn't look at the definition of income, and that's where you may have
Yeah, good question. Thank you. We'll look into it. Looks like Tom has another question.
Peter,
If this year affiliation are Bushwalking New South Wales picking up at the GST back. If the GST has to be applied next year, based on your surplus, would Bushwalk New South Wales then consider picking up the tab next year?
Our operating income was actually less than our operating expenses for this financial year that we're looking at. So there's not a lot of room for that.
If you exclude the grant, like you are hiring 140,000 sort of. Consider for that.
No, operating income less operating expense was negative. Couple of $100.
I know that's in Bushwalk. If our surplus starts to rise, again, we will either give grants or whatever, because we keep our surplus down.
Maybe a little terminology question. I think if you're saying you've got $140,000 in the bank, that's not surplus, that's just the assets. So if you're asking, the asset going to be run down into this GST next year, is that the first one? Yes.
That would not be my intention normally. That would be up to the committee.
I think.
One thing that we may want to consider is if any money is received by the organisation goes to a trust rather than standard bank accounts, then you can apply for a GST-free income.
Yeah. Good point.
Just one further question. This in relation, this is a question that being raised with me, and we went through the answer our meeting on Thursday night. That the broker fees for 2023 and 2022 are excluded. 2021 they were included. Is there any specific reason why the broker fees are not?
They weren't invoiced to us separately. That's the only reason. In the pre, I'm sorry.
Have we any idea how much the broker fees are?
I can answer that one. The broker fees, they were saying, just very well, 2016 until last year was 27.5 thousand plus GST. This year it was increased for the first time in 6 years, and it's now 30,000 plus GST for all of Australia. So we support share with whatever is insurance.
Yep.
I think what you're saying though, Peter, was that that line item, there's a missing year in the report.
It was identified separately in 21.
Yes.
Have not been identified separately in 22 or 23.
This year, they separated before that, which was half in the personal civilian, half in the public liability. The broker fee was in there this year. It's taken out. It did go up, but that was the first increase.
Look, I think, sorry,
Yeah,
just to
go ahead.
I think in relation to GST, we need to have a conversation within the organisation about GST, and I think it's worth a question to the ATO about the grant.
Yep.
And I think before we go back to the clubs, we get some further information about that.
Right.
And whether we go out of GST, I think that's a conversation the committee needs to take, and this incoming committee will need to take. Yeah. Yep.
If you do it in writing, it's about a 72-day turnaround.
Okay.
If you ring them, ring twice, And make a note of the call centre office name and location.
Okay, well, good advice, good advice. So something we will take early on in the next committee's life. So, okay, I'm going to move the, ask for someone to move the Peter's financial report, the financial report be adopted. And I think we just should make a note for the minutes that there were questions about GST, and that's a task for the incoming committee to take further and to advise clubs. So someone like to move that? John, thank you. Anyone to second? Margaret, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? No, I declare carried. This now brings us to where I'm going to step away, because it's the election of the management committee. And I'm going to ask Keith Maxwell to come up as returning officer to conduct the election. Keith will need to know what nominations have been received.
Oh, you're not waiting for me, you're waiting for the keys, aren't you?
Well, Keith is now going to run them.
So if you can just talk into there so that people online can see and hear.
On moment of power, I thank the outgoing committee and give them the sack. And call for nominations to form a new management committee, of course, starting with the nominations for president. Do we have nominations for president?
We do have a nomination for president for David Bell.
As always, I'll call for other nominations. But David's obviously respected, and thank you. I think you're elected. No other nominations. Moving on to vice president. A role I've done in the past, but that was a long time ago. So, yes, do I have a nomination for vice president of Bushwalking New South Wales?
We have a nomination for John Gray from Bnsw Bushwalking Club.
All right, I'm calling for other nominations either from people online or in the meeting at the moment. And while I've got your attention for a moment, I would mention that now that we're using Zoom, it's far easier to be part of the management committee of Bushwalking New South Wales. So it's something that means that you're less committed in time-wise, that you can have meetings online. So it's an improvement in the way we run things. I think you're it, John. Well done. Next in line should be, well, I'm going to go for treasurer or secretary. If I follow this list, secretary. You have a nomination for secretary. Do you know if there's one person?
Oh, sorry. Busy writing notes.
Most
we don't
important.
actually have a nomination for secretary, and unfortunately our secretary is unwell today, so I'm not sure if he wants to renominate. So the floor is open.
It's a far easier job than it used to be, because you're assisted by Kirsten and Justin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All you have to do is turn up. It's not that hard. I think if you've managed $20 million companies, you could be our secretary. Sure, no worries. That's my job. ask people to volunteer.
So
Nobody look me in the eye. Look away, look away. Ah.
so we're leaving that position unfilled for the moment, or calling for more nominations? Silence.
An awkward silence.
Right.
There's
So-
nothing on, nobody online is.
Oh, yeah. we should- Okay.
I got in when the going was good. I was secretary for Federation as it was then, before we had computers, and so might have been less work.
I can't use this.
We're succeeding or not succeeding?
Somebody's joining from a phone. No, I'm not getting anything at the moment, but we can wait for them to. They can get back to us.
Can you keep the Facebook up on the screen? Or unless there's.
Ah, praise.
Probably want to put on the share screen. You have to- you can
So Thais, our current secretary is
Trevor.
Trevor.
We can move, I think we should move on to the treasurer, and we can follow up. Look, we don't know, Trevor's not well at the moment, so we can follow up with him later.
Yeah, let's keep moving. Time's slipping away. Yeah,
Not well today.
let's do that. We need a treasurer. We've had an excellent report given of showing that we're in a strong financial position. So we need to fill that position of treasurer. Do I have a nomination?
Do we have, did you send them one? Yeah. We have a nomination for Peter Jack from Illawarra Ramblers.
What a fine name for a bushwalking club. That was my first bushwalking club, YMCA Ramblers. You're happy to stand again, Peter? Welcome on board. I've had. Well done. Now, we also need between three, let's thank those people. And we have some ordinary committee members. Between 3 and 6 ordinary committee members, I have reading on the screen. Do I have some nominations? You're going to call them extraordinary? Do we have nominations, Kirsten?
Yes. Margaret, oh, yes, Margaret. We have a nomination for Margaret Pavey from Watergan Wanderers.
And Margaret's done good work for Confederation or Bushwalking New South Wales over many years. Yeah. Any other names?
Excellent.
Yeah, good worker. And last year we had a Paul McCann. Is Paul willing to stand?
I think
so. He's still online.
no, it's not.
No.
We really have to ask him.
That's all right. We can follow him later. We'll follow up. I'm pretty certain he wants it because he's got a job to do. And
Yeah.
hasn't finished.
Right.
So well, that's for us to follow up on.
I'd like, if possible, to see 1 or 2 more people, if that's achievable. It's a far less demanding job than being one of the office bearers, and it brings some colour and diversity to Bushwalking New South Wales if we can have some other people. So, any other names? So now that I'm saying again that we've got Zoom, you don't even have to leave home to attend meetings. I think my job's done now.
Okay, so we have Margaret Covey, John Flint and
Paul McCann. Yeah,
okay.
We can't put him down without his permission.
to be confirmed.
Can I just also add that Margaret serves as our public officer?
But that's not for re-election.
That's not an elected position, but it's still very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, well,
What's that?
Margaret is our public officer.
Yes, yes.
It's not an elected position, but it's still very important.
yeah. So can I give the chair back to the new president?
Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Can you get me back to actually, we'll be calling on Keith for in a minute, because this brings us to the Chardon Award. No, you didn't need to go far away. The Chardon Award is, if you probably will know, is named after Harold Chardon, who was the first Secretary of Confederation, as then was, in 1932. And the Chardon Award recognises bushwalkers who have made a significant contribution to the bushwalking movement in New South Wales and the ACT. And the way we've been doing it for quite a few years is we have an award to someone, a living person, but also, and this is really where Keith comes into it, we have a posthumous award, which is to someone who was very prominent in the bushwalking movement, was never really recognised. So the living awardee is Leonie Bell, no relation, who, apart from serving as, I think, 8 years as our webmaster, is an author of a book called Lost, and she did present on that a while ago, but she's also been a long-standing member of a number of bushwalking clubs, including Sutherland and I think Christian Bushwalkers. And I think she's a current president of one of those clubs. So Leonie Bell is there she is, and she's going to say something.
Wait a minute. Sorry, can you just flick that across for me, please?
Sorry, this?
Yeah,
That?
yeah, this way. Thank you.
I'll get out of the way.
Good evening, everyone, and I'm sorry I can't be with you tonight, but I'm actually working. I was very surprised and very honoured to receive the nomination for the Chardon Award this year. I would like to thank the Executive Committee and our Executive Officer, Kirsten, who keeps us all on track and very organised. Some of you might recall that back in 2013, we had a President's meeting to brainstorm ideas. And at that meeting, I voiced the opinion that although the Confederation website had been great because it started, that it was no longer meeting the needs of the organisation. So I was quite gratified when in February 2014, the committee announced that they would be setting aside money to put together a new website. David Morrison was appointed project manager, and he asked for volunteers to help write the website. Well, I thought that since I've been so vocal at that meeting, perhaps I should volunteer my talent. And so together we wrote the website. Now, we had three aims at the time. Firstly, to communicate with our member clubs. Secondly, to provide information about bushwalking clubs and bushwalking, those who are considering taking up the sport. And thirdly, to be the go-to place for accurate and current information on bushwalking, since we live in the body in the state. Once we launched the website, then I was asked to continue to update the website. So every so often I get an email from Kirsten and she asks me to add or update information or even occasionally to write on the page. In fact, it's a lot larger website than it was when we first started. Who would have thought back then that all that 10 years later I would be involved in the website? I am grateful for the opportunity. I have never done it before, and I certainly have learned quite a bit about it, although I'm still no expert. So once again, thank you, committee, thank you to Kirsten, and thank you to all. Keep bushwalking.
And I'd like to now hand it over to Keith to talk about the winner of the posthumous Chardon Award for 2023.
We have.
I suggested the Chardon Award to encourage interest in bushwalking, because I think you all agree it's a great activity that should be better appreciated. And in line with that, I've actually also nominated some bushwalkers in the past as OAM. So Michael Keats, my co-author with the Splendor Rock book, I nominated him first, and I've also now nominated Andy McQueen. So they're very worthwhile people. And I'll have to say that I might have nominated other people, but I can't tell you. Secrecy is part of the deal if you do any nominations. So watch this space. So the man I was going to mention as the deceased member, I kept in touch with him for many years. He was quite a character. Keith Massey was heavily involved in our search and rescue section, and he was part of the, I call it the catalyst in the changeover from our first series of radios, and which were very primitive by modern standards, to a more modern system of radios for the SNR, and that's been such a critical thing for making SNR so effective. And he also was then the equipment officer, and he would tow the rescue trailer with his own vehicle. So he was very much an active part of SNR for many years. And unfortunately, I kept in touch with him for many years, and he was, about 2 or 3 years ago, I got in touch with his wife, and well, she got in touch with me after I'd sent a Christmas card, and she said, unfortunately, he died that year. So very sad occasion. But Keith Massey, quite a character. He also paid some research on the ground research. So some of you may know there's a plane still lost in Barrington Tops, VHMDX. He went and did research on it off his own bat to help in our searches that SNR have done. SNR has now morphed into Bush Search and Rescue of New South Wales SES, and coming up in October, where will they be? Back in Barrington. It's elusive, that plane. So Keith was a part of searching for that plane and getting more background information. So a worthy representative of Bushwalking New South Wales.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Keith. So it's now, this is always one of the better parts of the meeting. The whole meeting is all good, of course, but this is one of the best parts, which is before we close formally, we have a giveaway of prizes. So each of you got a yellow bit of paper. So we're going to do this for both the people in the room, but we're also going to make it available for people attending online. So we have 2 prizes. For the online people, we have a water bottle kindly donated by Paddy Palin, and we also have a package of delicacies from the North Coast. So this is going to go to someone in this room. So we might do the online people first. So what I'm going to do is call out a number, and if it's your number, you get the water bottle. So
I would suggest that we actually limit it to the people who are left.
Yes.
Online.
Yes.
Because they've stood the test.
They've persevered. Yes, that's their report.
Yeah, okay.
And obviously, you don't have to come to Sydney to get the water bottle. We will be posting it to you.
So that's a number between 1 and 11.
7.
1, 2, 3. Sam Garrett Jones from NPA New South Wales.
Sam, congratulations.
Congratulations, Sam.
You get a water bottle. So we will be posting that to you in the near future. Now, good on you, Sam. And for this prize, which is some delicacies from the North Coast, I will be taking a...
Got to mix them.
Yep. This is number M96. It's probably those people that left.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
We'll keep going till we have someone here.
Isn't that funny? M77. There we are. Tom, Congratulations. It's not because he put his hand up.
Fantastic.
See, if he asks a lot of questions, you
Come
get a
and your
prize.
prize.
I'll take it down. I think that it just about closes the meeting. We're based on time. I do, though, before we do formally close, we just have a very brief general business. So if there's anything, another issue that anyone would like to raise now, anything? Yeah. Yes.
Come along from the New South Wales Road Gaming Association, we're not a member, to make contact and wonder whether there's some synergies between Bushwalking, New South Wales and road gaming.
7-1.
We'd like to pursue with you, which could be, for example, building navigation skills of potential leaders. We've also got 6,000 people on email lists, quite substantial in our own right. Not for profit.
6-9. 7-1.
No, that we welcome that. I mean, as you know, a lot of bushwalkers also do road gaining, so it's well represented. So yeah, we're open to any contact you'd like to make. So yeah, definitely.
Thanks.
Do you have a card
I'll
or just
give
a
you my
copy?
card if you
Yeah,
come.
there we go. Good.
You're doing.
Exchange of card. Okay, there's no other.
There's one from online.
Yes.
Question is there any updates on initiatives to encourage young people to join our bushwalking clubs? That would be for John.
John.
Do you want to stand up here?
You might say people can hear.
Well, the only initiative that we're actively pursuing at the moment is
This is ridiculous.
considering a change of image for the group, and which we're kind of interested in pursuing adding some different terminology, such as expressions of outdoor adventure, and there's going to be, we're planning to release a survey sort of amongst all the club members, and also wider amongst the community, and explore the preference of other people who are engaged in bushwalking and outdoor adventure activities. And so that's, in answer to the question, that is the main avenue that that is being pursued at the moment, to explore image, because I believe that there's a problem with the image of our organisation, and in order to attract younger people, which I believe is necessary in the long run. If we don't attract more younger people in the long run, well, I think the future of the whole movement is not good. There's a lot more that I could say, so I won't bother going into that yet. But there is an opinion piece which was released in the last newsletter, and it's going to be, I believe, repeated in the next newsletter, which sort of outlines some of my thoughts on this. And anyway, that's where we're at the moment. And I'll finish off by saying, I believe this image is just one element of there's a whole group of things that we need to do, but I think a lot of these things aren't going to amount to much in the long run unless we have that associated change of image to something which is a bit more sort of appealing to younger people, and a bit more cool, and a bit more exciting. So unless we address those other measures, such as promoting through social media, I don't think they're going to amount to too much. So that's what we're exploring at the moment. and people, everyone will have their chance to have a say on it.
You said that this is on some, is there a link to this information? Can we be about?
Well, there's a link to the opinion piece.
Is that something that you can pass through or through the newsletter?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it was in the last newsletter.
It was the last newsletter.
Yeah, so just there's a blog, yeah.
Yeah, yes, but I think Kirsten asked that it be Justine to include it in the next newsletter as well, but make it a bit more prominent, I suppose, up nearer the front. But yeah, that has a link to the opinion piece. And then the strategy is just to allow people to absorb that, form some ideas, maybe talk about it, but then we're going to release a survey just see if anything comes of it. But it's certainly what I believe, that I think we're on a ship that's slowly going downhill, and we need to turn the ship around, and we need a big change. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and can I just add, I think there are clubs out there, and depends what you mean by young people, but I think there are some clubs that are doing a pretty good job at a broader demographic. And I think we need to reach out to those clubs and learn about what they're doing, but they are out there. There are clubs that are doing. Do you disagree? Well, anyway, look. It's all relative. Yes. Yep.
We definitely need you on the committee.
There was recently some results on
Ozplay.
Ozplay.
Yes. Yes.
And it showed that the participation in clubs was only about 0.1 or 0.2% of all participants who do bushwalking, hiking, and most of that is for people over 55 or 60. Some of the participation rate in people less than 40, it often didn't even register. The numbers were so low that it didn't even come out on the block. So there are some statistics that show that numbers are very low. And I think we need a big change.
Yes, but also bear in mind, I know of individual clubs that have chosen to, in terms of their membership numbers, to stay what they would call it steady state. Not all clubs want to grow exponentially for a variety of reasons. Obviously we don't want to see clubs die out, but there are decisions by club committees not to grow their clubs. So I'm not saying that's necessarily good or bad. It's just the way it is. Yeah. I think it may be we want to see more clubs, but not necessarily, but there may not be volunteer committees. They can't necessarily resource, multiple thousands of members. So it's a complex issue. And I think the way I also make a comment, statistics, we often, the way we collect statistics on bushwalking, there's also this word hiking, and that's a separate statistical category in some of these surveys. We need to tease out that. That's what I would, and that Ozplay thing, I always say, well, is hiking considered as a separate activity? And is that being, Alan wants to say something?
One club which will be known that said that we can't for our membership because there'll be too many postage stamps to be.
Postage stamps.
Can you repeat it for the online people?
They can't grow their club because it would mean having too many postage stamps to lick. And I might just add that there are still clubs that pay their subscriptions to us by cheque.
Yes.
So anyway, look, two more things. Kirsten.
When we said our thanks, I I was going to have a thanks section, and in that thanks, I wanted to thank an additional person who's Alan Sauron from the Bush Club, who is taking care of our insurance he's volunteering for Bushwalking Australia and does a fantastic job on our insurance. You'll see that the price of our insurance has gone down this year. So well done, Alan. Yeah, well done, everybody. No accidents. I like it. Finally, I'd like to thank Liz again and Michelle, who joined us from her holiday, for the leadership forum and leadership presentation. On your seats, there is a brief questionnaire I'd love you to fill out for us. It's what do you think about the leadership training ideas, so that you can have some input into the course before it gets developed, and also some questions about Bushwalking New South Wales. It shouldn't take you very long at all, and please return them to the front desk. Thanks.
And with that, I'm going to declare the meeting formally closed at 9:10.
You can answer this one.
Yep.
Is there any more information about that?
Ah.
You have to try to fly it out between them.
Look, it's moving in small steps, and we now have a Friends of the Great Escarpment Trail, a friends group.
I'd like access to the booklet or the maps.
Oh, we haven't got. There are GPX files, so I think we can. If you wanted to,
there's a Google map, detailed Google map for it. So if you go onto our website and search for a Great Escarpment Trail, or look under the walks section, you can see there's a whole page on it, and that links you through to Google Maps for the entire trail. It's a tremendous amount of work has been put into figuring out the route, mapping it.
Trying to get a little bit is next to impossible without having no idea of what their plan was.
Yeah. Well, that's all thanks to Gavin Dale from Queensland. So have a look at that page, and we'd love to hear your feedback on it. We're looking for people who will ground truth it and
the first base, so that I have some idea of where they go, so that I can maybe plan a few weekends in that area.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
okay, good. Thanks for attending, and see you next year, if not before.